On May 15, 2025, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office quietly published its fourth batch of declassified UAP case files, 30 records spanning 1948 to 2025. No press conference, no Pentagon briefing, just a website update and a zip file. Within hours, analysts, journalists, and physicists were pulling the data apart. Most cases carried AARO's familiar disposition, unresolved. But 3 files stood out, not because they proved anything extraordinary, but because they exposed the exact fault lines between what sensors capture, what analysts can determine, and what the public demands to know. Let's start with language. AARO uses a 4-tier disposition system. Cases are either resolved with high confidence, resolved with moderate confidence, resolved as a known entity, or marked unresolved. That last category does not mean alien. It does not mean threat. It means the available data was insufficient to reach a conclusive identification. The evidentiary standard requires corroborating multi-sensor data, environmental context, and platform telemetry. If any leg of that triangle is missing, the case stays open. This is important. Unresolved is an epistemological statement, a confession of incomplete information, not an ontological claim about what the object was. Critics argue this framing lets the Pentagon appear transparent while conceding nothing. Defenders say it's how serious analysis works. The first standout, a 2020 encounter over the Atlantic, designated in the release as one of the clearest UAP recordings AARO has published to date. The footage shows an object estimated at roughly 20 feet in diameter, exhibiting what analysts describe as a 2-tiered structure, a broader lower section beneath a narrower upper dome. It was captured by military sensors aboard a naval platform. The clip is short. The resolution is genuinely better than most UAP imagery in the public record, and yet the case remains unresolved. Why? Because a single electro-optical capture, without corroborating radar tracking or signals intelligence, doesn't meet AARO's threshold. One camera, one angle, one moment. Clarity of image is not the same as sufficiency of evidence. The second case, catalogued as Dow UAP PR045, originates from a Middle Eastern theater of operations. The infrared clip shows a luminous object tracked by a forward-looking infrared sensor. Online reaction was immediate. The object appears to move in ways inconsistent with conventional aircraft. But sensor geometry tells a more cautious story. FLIR systems mounted on moving platforms create apparent motion artifacts. When the aircraft banks, the background shifts. When the gimbal tracks, angular rates can mimic acceleration. Range is the critical unknown. Without a confirmed distance to the object, speed and size calculations become guesswork. AARO's analysts flagged this explicitly. The file notes that platform maneuvering during acquisition introduced ambiguity that could not be resolved with available data alone. The third case is perhaps the most instructive. Captured over the Indo-Pacific, it shows an object rendered on a sensor display as a 6-pointed star. Geometric, symmetric, striking. The image spread rapidly on social media as evidence of exotic craft. The reality is almost certainly more mundane and more interesting for what it teaches. Many military optics use apertures with 6-sided iris blades, out-of-focus point sources of light, distant aircraft, flares, satellites passing through these apertures produce hexagonal bokeh patterns. The 6-pointed star is likely the sensor's signature, not the object's shape. AARO has not confirmed this explanation, but the file's technical notes reference sensor geometry as a significant analytical factor. This is the core lesson. The instrument mediates the observation. Always. The archive spans from 1948 to the present, 77 years. That 1948 date is not accidental. It places the earliest file in the same year as Project Sign, the Air Force's first formal UFO investigation. What the continuity reveals is an institutional posture that has remained remarkably stable across 8 decades. Acknowledge sightings, investigate selectively, classify what you can, and warehouse what you can't. Project Blue Book closed in 1969 with 701 cases marked unidentified. AARO's modern files use different terminology, but the same logic. The bureaucratic muscle memory is striking. Acknowledge, investigate, file, repeat. Whether this represents prudent scientific caution or a 75-year pattern of managed ambiguity depends entirely on what you believe the government already knows. What distinguishes this fourth release is the sourcing breadth. Files originate from across the national security apparatus: the Department of Defense, NASA, the CIA, the FBI, and the Department of Energy. This multi-agency pipeline was mandated by the FY 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, which required legacy UAP records from all agencies be funneled to AARO. Meanwhile, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb has publicly confirmed he is actively reviewing portions of the declassified dataset. Loeb, who leads the Galileo project and has long argued for open scientific inquiry into anomalous phenomena, told reporters the data deserves rigorous, independent analysis, not just government review. His involvement adds a layer of external scientific scrutiny that previous disclosure eras lacked entirely. Here is the tension that defines this moment. AARO's language is deliberately narrow. Phrases like insufficient data to resolve, sensor-related ambiguity, and no confirmed anomalous characteristics are designed to convey analytical restraint. Online, the same footage generates claims of anti-gravity propulsion, non-human intelligence, and government cover-up, sometimes within minutes of publication. Neither extreme serves the public well. Dismissing every sighting as sensor noise ignores cases where trained military observers report corroborating visual contact. But treating every unresolved file as evidence of extraterrestrial technology ignores the mundane explanations that account for the vast majority of cases. The honest position is uncomfortable. Some of these cases are genuinely strange, and we do not yet have the data to explain them. AARO is expected to continue quarterly releases through 2026. Congressional oversight committees have signaled they want faster declassification and fewer redactions. The Schumer-Rounds UAP Disclosure Act, though weakened in its final form, established a framework that future legislation could strengthen. The question is no longer whether the government will release UAP files. It's whether the files released contain enough sensor data, enough context, and enough analytical rigor to move the conversation beyond the 75-year loop of unknown but unconfirmed. 30 files won't answer that. 300 might not either. But for the first time, the instruments of scrutiny, scientific, congressional, and public, are all pointed in the same direction. What they resolve from here depends on whether transparency is a policy or a performance.